Ooh, pig suey! Arkansas is back in the postseason, and they are hosting up there in Fayetteville as they welcome in Kansas, Creighton, and North Dakota State. We are about to be previewing the Fayetteville Regional as the Arkansas Sports Writer of the Year in 2020, Andrew Hutchinson, will join us right after this open to preview the Fayetteville and the Arkansas Regional right here on the Stingray Show.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
And with that, I want to welcome you inside the Fayetteville Regional Preview Show right here, part of the Stingray Show. And for those of you wondering, the Fayetteville Regional is paired up with the Knoxville Regional that includes Tennessee, Wake Forest, Cincinnati, and Miami of Ohio. So if Arkansas and Tennessee both make it through their regionals, they will be facing off against each other in the super regional round, and those are familiar foes to say the least. So to break down the Fayetteville Regional, I am about to be joined by the Arkansas Sports Writer of the Year in 2020, Mr. Andrew Hutchinson. Andrew, how are things with you up there in Arkansas as we are counting down the hours and the minutes to the Fayetteville Regional?
I'm doing good, Stingray. I appreciate you having me on, and doing pretty good. Just kind of anxiously waiting for some baseball on Friday. Should be some good games.
So, Andrew, go ahead briefly and talk about the game that Arkansas had up there in Hoover. It looked like that the bus showed up, but Arkansas did not really get off the bus, to say the least.
Yeah, you never know how Arkansas is going to handle Hoover, especially since they already had a top 8 national seed wrapped up. And, boy, they looked like they didn't look like the team we had seen them throughout the entire regular season. I mean, they botched a couple of double play balls in the first inning, and you're talking about a team that was number 2 nationally in fielding percentage coming into that game. And so they botched the 2 double play balls. They should have been out of that inning with no runs. They ended up giving up 5 in the first, and that was pretty much all she wrote. The offense, the bats never showed up. That was a little bit disappointing, maybe the most disappointing thing about it. But again, I don't put a whole lot of stock into Hoover because kind of what happened there was not going to matter. I mean, they're the number 3 national seed. I don't think if they had won the tournament, maybe, and we saw with Vanderbilt, they got the number 1 overall seed. But does it really matter between number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 national seed? I don't think so. It's all the same. You're still hosting a super.
So, Andrew, you cover Arkansas and this baseball program. It seems to me from the outside looking in that there is no bigger snake bit baseball team since that dropped fly ball there in Omaha. Somehow, Arkansas just cannot get back to Omaha to get that taste out of their mouth.
Yeah, they've been back a couple of times since then. That was 2018. They were back in 2019, but they went 0-2. They lost a couple of one-run games. They had a former player that didn't really play that much for Texas Tech, but he ended up hitting a home run against Arkansas in Omaha. I mean, go figure. 2022, they ran into the red-hot Ole Miss Rebels and got Dylan DeLucia had just a tremendous pitching performance in that semifinal game with a trip to the finals on the line. The last couple of years, they've been knocked out of a home regional. I mean, last year it was set up perfect. You had Hagen Smith, the best pitcher in America, on the mound. He got through 4 scoreless, and then in the 5th inning, it just all fell apart. Kansas State scored 6 runs against them. Similar story the year before. Hagen Smith had a rough outing. Arguably the best pitcher in school history. And he kind of, fell apart in the postseason. Now, he was great in 2022, so I don't want to – that's a different story for another day, his performance in the postseason. Even 2021, #1 overall seed. Kevin Kopps is the National Player of the Year. They lose to a red hot North Carolina State team in the Super Regional. So yeah, it just seems like there's always been something kind of standing in the way. They haven't been quite as close as they were back in 2018, where
Right.
all they got to do is catch that foul pop up, and they're national champions. And we're having a completely different discussion here.
Yes. So, Andrew, when the bracket was set on Monday, give us your initial thoughts of the regional there in Fayetteville. And it seems like, for whatever reason, Arkansas cannot shake those teams from the state of Kansas.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, they
Yeah.
obviously Kansas State last year, but I mean Kansas across all sports. I mean basketball, they've met in the NCAA tournament a couple of times. Arkansas's won both of those. They just played in the Liberty Bowl
Yeah.
a year or so ago, or something like that. A crazy game, triple overtime, I want to say. So Arkansas and Kansas are no strangers to each other, despite being in Big 12 SEC.
Right.
So it's kind of crazy, but my initial thoughts were that it was a pretty fair draw. Uh,
Hmm.
I thought, getting a North Dakota State team that the only reason they're in the postseason is because they won their conference tournament. They're well under 500. That's kind of what you expect as a 4 seed when you're a top 3 national seed. Thought that was totally fair. I thought it might have been Little Rock, that being an in-state team, but get to avoid that. And then, I mean, Kansas and Creighton are both solid ball clubs in the Big 12 and the Big East. Played really well this year. I think they both finished like second in their league or something. Creighton obviously won the Big East. Both have 40+ wins. So 2 really good teams, and it's going to be a challenge for Arkansas. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, all things considered, I've seen some places say it's a really tough draw. I've seen some places say it's a really easy draw. So if you get both of them saying that, it's probably pretty fair.
Yeah. So, Andrew, how surprised were you that Arkansas decided to do the day game rather than the night game, just simply because a lot of the Arkansas people will still be at work rather than them being there if it was a night game?
This is something Dave Van Horn really likes to do every year, is to take that early game. And he recognizes that it's not as good for the fans, because as you said, it's not going to be as packed or as rowdy. Now it's still going to be packed. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be people. If people say in Arkansas, they save up their vacation days and half days to be able to do this for the postseason in mind. It's still going to be a good crowd. But the reasoning is like, if there's any bad weather, for example, so let's say you get one game in on Friday and then you have to push everything back, then you're talking about maybe playing 2 games in one day if you didn't get to play on that first day. So it's really just a strategic thing. You play at 2 o'clock, and then if you win, you don't play until 8 o'clock the next day. So you get extra rest. Maybe you use a bullpen arm in that first game, and you can turn around and use them again if you need to. Or you avoid the potential of having to play 2 games in one day, even if you win. Like if that game gets postponed to Saturday morning, even if you win, you have to turn around and play that night. So that's less than ideal. That's the reasoning behind it. I know it bothers Arkansas fans because they would love to have the night game, but it makes a lot of sense strategically from Dave Van Horn.
So, Andrew, I know that you cover Arkansas, but would you please give us a preview of the nightcap? That is 41-14 Creighton versus 43-15 Kansas. And that game first pitch is at 7 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah, Kansas. I'll start with them. They're the 2 seed. They, I believe, finished second in the Big 12. The interesting thing about Kansas is they actually have a couple of former Razorbacks on their team, including their starting second baseman. Michael Brooks is his name. He was a guy that was here at Arkansas for just 1 semester, transferred out, and has had a pretty good career at Kansas. He's a guy to watch because those guys always seem to be motivated when they face their former team. Goes both ways. Arkansas's had guys like that have played well against their former team. So they're a good ball club. The Big 12 obviously didn't get any regional hosts this year for, I believe, the first time. And so, but that don't get it wrong. They're still a very good baseball conference. So finishing second in that conference, their coach, his name's Dan Fitzgerald. He used to coach at Dallas Baptist. We know that's a big time baseball program. So they're a good ball club. They're a little bit more offensive than Creighton is. They got better offensive numbers, maybe not quite as good pitching numbers. Creighton, on the other hand, I'll go to them. The Blue Jays out of the Big East. I believe that I want to say they finished tied for second, or maybe tied for the regular season title in the Big East. But they were still kind of considered a borderline, bubble team going into the Big East tournament. And all they did was go beat Xavier, go beat UConn, a couple other bubble teams to win that conference tournament and earn that automatic bid. So they're a team that's hot. Anytime you've won 40 plus games in the regular season, you're a really good team. Their coach, they'll also have some motivation because their coach is retiring after 22 years after this season. So their team's going to go in there trying to win one for their coach. So two really highly motivated teams. Whoever wins that game in that nightcap, waiting on Arkansas on day 2, whether that be in the losers bracket or the winners bracket.
So Andrew, who do you have winning that second game there on Friday?
Man, that's tough. I honestly like Creighton just because of how hot they are. They played well. They've got the motivation factor of their head coach, as I mentioned, and plus, maybe if you're Arkansas, that may be the matchup you want. Not just because they're the 3 seed versus the 2 seed, but their makeup on that team is they're more, if I'm not mistaken, more pitching reliant than they are hitting. They're not as good of a hitting team. And I think that's what pairs well against Arkansas. Is if you're a team that is built around pitching with just okay hitting, I think that's a team Arkansas could handle because I think Arkansas's pitching is good and can handle, but maybe not great like we've seen. Whereas I think the lineup is capable of hitting even good pitching. So I think if you're an Arkansas fan, you probably want to root for Creighton. But I mean, it's splitting hairs, honestly.
Okay, so let's say that Arkansas does come out of their regional this year. The Super Regional would be paired with the Knoxville Regional, and that is Tennessee, Wake Forest, Cincinnati, and Miami of Ohio. How do you see the Knoxville Regional going, and who do you ultimately have Arkansas facing in the Supers?
Remind me, who's Tennessee's coach again? Who is that again?
Tony Vitello.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, personally, just as a guy who likes to see good baseball and to be entertained, I am sure hoping it's Tennessee, and I'm sure hoping Arkansas makes it out of the regional because Baumwalker Stadium for DVH versus Tony Vitello in a super regional with a trip to the College World Series on the line.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, that would be an incredible, incredible atmosphere. That said, I mean, Wake Forest is a very good team. It wasn't that long ago that they were right on the brink of playing for a national championship. I believe they were matched up with LSU in the semis whenever Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz got the better of them and won it. But that's a very good team. That obviously Arkansas's pitching coach Matt Hobbs is very familiar with. Before he came here, he was previously an assistant at Wake Forest. So there'd be a little bit of interesting storylines there, but it would pale in comparison to DVH and Tony Vitello, Arkansas, Tennessee. They just wrapped up the regular season against each other at Baumwalker Stadium. Arkansas lost the first game and then ended up winning the next 2, beating Liam Doyle in game 2. So that would be an epic series if that were to unfold that way.
So, Andrew, how close is this Arkansas baseball program to winning the national title? And what would that do for this Arkansas fan base that desperately needs some sport to cheer for?
I mean, they've been right there. I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, they were a pop-up away in 2018. Even when they've gone 0-2 in 2019, it was 2 one-run games. They've been so close. They've had they've had 3 straight years of winning 20 games in the SEC, and I don't think that's been done since LSU and maybe in a decade ago. So they have probably been the most consistent program in college baseball. They just haven't won the national championship. They've done everything else. They've got several SEC West titles. Back when there were divisions, they've won an SEC overall title. They won an SEC tournament title. They've been the number one overall seed. They've been a national seed and hosted regionals. They've done it all. They've produced a ton of draft picks. They have literally done everything except win that last game of the year. So they're very, very close. Arkansas fans are frustrated to keep saying that. It's just driving them crazy, and and I feel for them because they do want a winner. I mean, the 1994 national championship in basketball was a long time ago. We're talking over 3 decades ago, and if you're not counting track and field, they have not had a winner like that. The football team, had a couple of glory years back in the 2010, 2011 with Bobby Petrino, but since then it's not been some good years, but nothing great, nothing even sniffing a national championship. So to win a national title would mean everything to this fan base that is, as you said, starved for a champion like that. So they're again very, 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 very close. And they've got another great shot this year, but you got to make it through the regional first, which is what they've struggled with the last 2 years.
So, Andrew, speaking of that, one negative thing, if they are to trip up and not make it out of their own regional, what will rear its ugly head? What is the Achilles heel for this year's Arkansas baseball team?
I think that's kind of an easy question or an easy answer, and that's starting pitching. They
Okay.
don't have a Hagen Smith or a Blaine Knight or an Isaiah Campbell or a Connor Noland on this year's team. I mean, Zach Root is very, very good. I mean, I've seen projections that have him borderline first round pick in this summer's draft. He's got the talent, all the talent in the world. His 2 best outings of the season have been against Vanderbilt and Texas, the number 1 and number 2 national seeds. Shutout performances in those games. You really need strong starting pitching from him, from Gage Wood, and whoever starts the third, or God forbid if there's a 4th game or even 5th game, they've got to get some innings out of those guys because the bullpen is fantastic when they're not asked to do too much. So got to get some length, good innings out of that starting pitching. The offense, I know people are still not sold on the bats, but they've been the best offense start to finish in the entire SEC. People just got to accept that. They mash home runs, but they also can manufacture runs by singles, station to station. We don't see them steal very many bases, but that's because they can hit it out of the ballpark at any given moment, 1 through 9. So I honestly, I'm my biggest number one concern, which is crazy to think because we thought it was going to be a strength coming into the season, is that starting pitching. If they can get Zach Root and Gage Wood to pitch up to their potential, 2 guys that are borderline first-round picks, then they're going to be tough to beat.
So, Andrew, you've covered Arkansas very close all season. Would you please give us your thoughts on the ceiling for this baseball team in the postseason of 2025?
I mean, the postseason is being that last team standing. I mean, the ceiling is the national championship because they do. I mean, you hear it in every broadcast. If you watch them play against, LSU, and you hear Ben McDonald, a guy that's not biased to Arkansas by any means, saying Arkansas is the most complete team in the country.
Yeah.
We've heard it from all sorts of opposing commentators throughout the season, and that's because this is a team that can hit, this is a team that can pitch, and it's a team that can field. And if you can do all 3 of those at a high level, you've got the chance to win it all. I think at least they did at one point, maybe before the SEC tournament, they ranked top 20 nationally in scoring, runs per game, in ERA, and fielding percentage. So if you can do all 3 of those things well, then they're easily a team that could go all the way and win a national championship. But at the same time, if those starting pitching issues flare up like we were discussing, it's a team that could lose in its home regional for a 3rd straight year.
So, Andrew, as we walk out the door, who is one pitcher and one hitter that has to step up to keep Arkansas rolling in the postseason?
I think the pitcher, I mean, it's kind of a cop-out to pick the staff ace and Zach Root, but he's been inconsistent enough to where it's like, hey, he's got to be good. You need your ace to be an ace, especially when we've seen the aces maybe struggle the last year, with Hagen Smith. So I think he's obviously the key. If you could get 6-7 innings out of him, maybe even more, that would be fantastic. It would be key to them to moving on. And offensively, man, it's hard to pick one because there's 9 of them. But I mean, a guy that I think has struggled during SEC play, but maybe could be on the brink of a breakout is Brent Iredale, the Australian third baseman for Arkansas. He's been very good defensively all year, and offensively, he started out the year hot. I mean, he was hitting well over 400 entering SEC play. Struggled in conference play, facing really good pitching, obviously. But now that he's facing some non-SEC arms, I would not be surprised to see him break out and have a big weekend in the regional. And if you have him hitting like that and everyone else kind of hitting what they have been, then that's going to be a tough lineup to beat, even if the starting pitching doesn't perform up to its abilities.
So, Andrew, look, man, enjoy covering the regional there in Arkansas. Fingers crossed that they make it to the Super Regional for the first time in 2 years. And we would love to catch up with you next week as we preview where Arkansas is going to go and play for the Supers.
Anytime. I appreciate you having me on.
And Andrew, I will leave you with this. Woo pig, let's go. All right, so guys, that is going to wrap up the Fayetteville Regional right there, as Arkansas hopefully can make it out of their own regional for the first time in 2 years. And like we've been talking about, they are paired up with the Knoxville Regional, and we actually have a Knoxville preview show right under this video. And so tune into that one to kind of get a feel of what those teams are going to go through over there in Knoxville, Tennessee. Hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it. I will leave you with this for all of the Arkansas fans out there. I am personally pulling for the Hogs. Woo, pig suey. Let's go. And guys, let's get you a national championship that y'all most desperately need over there. I am pulling for the Hogs this weekend and in Omaha. Let's go get it done. And I have thoroughly enjoyed bringing you this Fayetteville preview show.